So, if you know me, you know that I'm generally a creative person. I write. If you don't know that I write, I have a blog. The blog's name is similar to, or is the same as the podcast's name. So, it's like a WordPress thing. Look me up, you'll find it. Well, look the name of this up and you'll find the blog. Um, I crochet, I paint, I do all sorts of things, right? I like building furniture and like creating all sorts of contraptions. The one thing I really enjoy about my job as well is the creative problem solving, but in general, like I would consider myself to be a creative person. So I got this book called The Creative Way. I forgot who the author is, like Rubik something. The name will be in the description, but I read this book, and the joy of reading the book was the fact that as much as like I wanted to just expand on my creativity, get over creative hurdles, like a writer's block or some sort of like, mental block where you feel like you're not, being creative or you can't like produce anything. So I had initially gotten the book for that reason, but I found it to be really insightful, and I encourage everybody to read it, even if you don't consider yourself to be creative, because the book really helped me realize that everyone is creative, right? That there isn't this, type A, type B personality type thing, you know what I mean? And that if you're type A, you're not creative or whatever, that everybody is inherently creative and that creativity comes out in different ways. And as much as I was aware of that, right, technically aware of it, it wasn't necessarily information that I was holding on to and like embodying in any way that mattered, if that makes sense. So even in me sort of acknowledging that I enjoy the creative problem solving element of my job, I didn't see it as part of my creativity. Do you get me? That being creative meant that it resulted in an artistic output. And that isn't the case always, right? That being creative could even be in simple things of like how you compose an outfit, right? How you structure a sentence, the way you talk, the way you put things together in general, the way you plan, the way you see the world, right? The way you address issues, the way you see love, the way everything about life has the potential of being a creative endeavor. Now, yes, that in and of itself sounds really stressful. It sounds really stressful because, like, does that mean that you have to be creative? And it also speaks to the fact that it now challenges what our idea of creative means, right? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one who, when I think of like, oh, creativity, there's a particular image that comes to mind, and you don't think of creativity when you are washing the dishes, right? Or the system that you use to keep your house clean. That is not considered as creative, but it does, right? It does have the potential of being a creative endeavor if you let it be, right? And that even if you're not conscientiously making it a creative endeavor, the fact that there are so many ways of maintaining a clean home, your way of doing it, be it something that you borrowed from your mom and this is how she did it, whatever. But the point is, right, that it's unique to you, that there's someone else who, achieves the same result, right, a clean home, and goes about it in a completely different way. That they understand cleanliness to be something else entirely, right? And that all that difference in outcome is proof of creativity. That if it was something that was clinical and scientific, that it would all have a standardized outcome. But even with science and maths, right, we talk about different people, doing maths in a different way, right? You will ask people, like just you and your friends, you could ask them, if you had to add 34 and, 57, how are you going to do that, right? And some person is going to say, okay, cool, 4 and 7 make 11, and then I'm going to say that's okay, cool, that's 10 and 1. So it's 10 plus 3 plus 5. So I'm going to sort of put the 10 with the 5 and make that 6. And then 3 plus 6 is 9. So then it's 91. Cool. Right? And someone else is going to say, like, I did this with my parents. And the way I explained it now, that's kind of how I do it. Not necessarily, but like that's kind of how I do it, right? And my mom, on the other hand, like she makes them, she will add numbers. So she will say, okay, 34, so that's plus 6 to make it 40. And 57 is plus 3 to make it 60. So 60 plus 40 makes 100. Cool. And then minus the numbers that I added. I don't know why she's doing these extra steps, but she's a nurse, and out of the three of us, she's with her mental maths, unbelievable, right? So then the 6 plus the 3 make 9. So 100 minus 9 is 91. We're all getting to the same number, right? But we all have our own individual creative way of doing it, right? My dad's going to start with the tens. Whereas I usually start with units, my dad starts with the tens, right? So he would do 3 plus 5, that's 8, and then 4 plus 7, it's 11. Okay, cool. So the 10 goes to the 8, that makes it 9, leaving 1, 91. Right? So we found out, and it's just like completely fascinating to me that yes, there are different ways of arriving to the same point, sure, but could we not see that as a sense of creativity? Because no one really taught you. We're all taught maths in the same way, technically, right? If you went to school in South Africa, if you went to public schools, if you went to whatever, there's a standardized curriculum, there's a standardized way that teachers are told to teach you. And working on the assumption that we're all taught in the same way, you have your own way of metabolizing things, right? Making it make sense to you. And the way that you make it make sense to yourself, that is the essence of creativity, right? Because all your creative outputs, right, even when it comes to art, is showing the world how you have metabolized what the world gives you, right? Your feelings. You're in pain and you're hurt, so you write a poem, you write a song, you do whatever, right? And you produce this feeling to help other people feel what you're feeling, expressing it in the way that you feel it, right? So you listen to a sad song and it elicits sadness to you, but it expresses it in a way that you would have never thought to express it, right? Because how you metabolize those feelings, how you process that feeling, the creative spirit within you experiences it, perceives it in a different way, right? Now, where am I going with this, and what does this have to do with Monday motivation? It's in understanding, especially in connection to the previous, not the previous episode, but several episodes ago, we were talking about feeling overwhelmed with the world, right? And that social media and everything seeks to tell us that we are not good enough, that we're behind, right? And I ended that episode by saying that like we're all running our own race, and specifically in the outro, I said that, like, you drive your car and I drive mine, right? Now, even in how we drive our own cars, how we run our own races, how we choose to do that, that is part of the creative endeavor, right? And I think there's something beautiful by seeing ourselves as creative beings, right? Because we all understand that creativity is limitless, right? That it is a never ending wellspring of life. And by understanding that inherently and innately that we are creative, it allows us to understand that we have the ability, the source, to create the life that we want, to become the people that we want to be, and also to exist in the world as whole. I think that because we oftentimes are told by society that, we can never be accepted fully, right? That there will always be something wrong with us, that we just accept that as fact, right? That, okay, cool, there's something wrong with me. I will just never be good enough, and that's fine, right? That these are the things that people like, these are the things that are marketable, these are the things that are acceptable, and that there's no room for the other parts of me to shine, to be seen. People don't like this part of me, so like I never really, tell people about this. This is like my secret shame. And you don't have to live that way, right? That in our creativity, in the never-ending wellspring of life that exists within us, that we call creativity, because remember, creativity is the ability to manifest and to create things that were never there before. It doesn't mean that it's never existed, right? But in the same way that I can turn a ball of wool and turn that into a bag, turn that into a beanie, turn that into a jersey, turn that into something new, that is the power of transformation. That is the power of creation. We have that within ourselves, right? For any and all aspects of our lives, be it a spreadsheet, right? And that was like the beauty of the book, because it was even talking about like people will construct Excel spreadsheets in completely different ways, expressing the same information, right? Might tap into and use different formulas, different structures, different presentations, right? That even when given data, the way that data is presented, the story that is told, the story that is created from mere data, that is creativity. That it's not some boring ass office job. Even something like accounting. Yes, we call creative accounting, you know, it's cooking the books, right? Because you can't be creative with accounting because everything is standardized. But there is there are fine nuances in terms of like how you choose to express the numbers. Yes, depending on where you work, they might have a template or a formula that they want you to conform to. But again, how you reach those numbers, how you get there, that is still a creative process for you. Do you get what I mean? And before I veer off too far, going back to who you are and your being, right? The fact that you have that creative power, that creative prowess to create something from nothing. Because yes, in my example, I used wool, right? But you could take sand, you could take anything. I mean, constructing a sentence, right? You're just taking random words that were plopped into your head at some point, words that you've acquired over time from experience, that come together and create something so eloquent, so beautiful, and you are able to take your thoughts, right? The random things floating around in your head that no one else can see or experience but you. And you can now create an output for other people to consume, to bring them closer to you, right? To help yourself be understood, or to help other people understand situations and things outside of themselves, right? That is the essence of creativity, that it is creating something that will exist outside of yourself, sometimes just for your own consumption, to validate your own existence, to serve a purpose in your own life, right? But it can also serve a purpose for other people, right? It is also sometimes for the benefit of others. And that you have the power to do this again and again and again, that it's not a one-trick pony that, has a single-use function. You can do anything, right? So that also means that you have not only the creativity, but your whole being has access to that creativity, can lend itself to that creativity to find a way to thrive and survive in these harsh environments, right? That you can find a way in this unyieldingly oppressive world, that you and your creativity and your being, you can find a way, right? Now, why am I saying all of this? I'm saying this because I think to some extent we are all deeply, deeply hurt by one thing or another, be it, a love that we thought would never fail, or by by family, by friends, by society, by our own expectations, right? All these things have hurt us to our core. And bit by bit, we shrink. Bit by bit, we build walls around the parts of ourselves that we choose to preserve. Bit by bit, those walls become prisons, and before you know it, it becomes a part of ourselves that we have forgotten. And then we exist in this world as a caricature of what we think others want of us, and not as our full selves. We exist in this world as marionettes dancing to a tune that we don't particularly like, secretly wishing we were doing something else, being something else. But alas, we choose what we call survival over what is really and truly existing and thriving, because we have sold ourselves the story, and we have been sold not just by ourselves to ourselves, but by society as a whole, right? Because when you choose, or when you try to break away from the mold, right, you're quickly reprimanded and corrected and told, hey, who are you to think that you can be more than what society tells you can be? So you stay small. You diminish yourself, right? The parts of yourself that once sought to see the sunlight are now trapped in a musty corner in your mind, only to exist as a relic of who you once thought you could be. But that part of you, the part of you that is whole, is secretly screaming to be seen, to be loved, to be cared for. And you have the ability, the creativity to let that part of you be seen, to let that part of you see the light, to find a way. You have it within you. Be creative. And that in itself, it has made even the most mundane tasks more pleasurable, because I love being creative. I love the opportunity to try something new. And by being creative, by telling myself that this is a creative endeavor, that this is an opportunity for me to express my creativity, it has made my life more interesting, more exciting, and not for the pleasure of other people, but just for me. That I can show up whole, even if it's just for myself, to myself. That my wholeness is not something that I owe to other people, but more than anything, I owe it to myself. And that I get the opportunity, the pleasure, the honor to try a new way of tackling the dishes. To try a new way of tackling doing my laundry, right? To say, okay, cool. I usually use the washing machine, and I've told myself that doing my laundry on a Friday is the best option so that I have the whole weekend to sort of do multiple loads if necessary, take advantage of the sunshine, whatever. But I tend to get a really good energy spike on a Wednesday. Maybe I do my laundry on a Wednesday. And maybe as I do my laundry, I'm figuring out my outfits for the next coming week. So I only wash what I need, right? That I prioritize based on what I'm going to wear first. And that those things are the things that I put in. I'm not separating by colors. I don't mind if my clothes end up a bit multicolored. It'll add a bit of character. It'll add a bit of, je ne sais quoi to my wardrobe. It'll make it feel like I'm wearing something new. That it gives me another creative opportunity with my wardrobe because now I get to spruce it up a bit. I'm like, oh, well, now I've got splotches of blue. So maybe I should add other colors in. Maybe that's how I'm going to do my laundry now. I'm going to see which items of clothing bleed color, and I'm going to throw in a few white items in there. White items that I'm not too, attached to it remaining white. And I'm going to see how it comes out. This will be my, most creative tie-dye attempt ever. Why not? And now laundry isn't just this mundane, tedious fucking task that never ends, that no matter how often you do the laundry, there's still more laundry to be done. Now, I'm excited to see how that white top is going to come out. And yes, I end up with a clean load of laundry, but I also have this tester fabric, right? Or I don't know which items of mine actually bleed because I've always been separating them. So now I'm going to throw in just a white piece of fabric for shits and giggles, just to see. And whatever color stains, the white fabric, those are the ones that I know bleed, right? And it's a process of elimination. It's a little scientific, process. Like, oh my gosh, the sense of adventure. Wah, 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 wah. And yes, maybe it's because I'm just so simple-minded that these little things, excite me. Fine. Fine. If that's who I am, then sure. Right? That this simple task of approaching doing my laundry differently has me titivated and looking forward to my next load. Sure. But I think life in general can be experienced differently if we allow ourselves to participate in it creatively. Because we tell ourselves that these certain things that we do are tasks. We tell ourselves that it is tedious. We tell ourselves that, I have to do this, that it's such a schlep. Oh my gosh, wara fish paste, right? This is what we tell ourselves all the time. And in our creativity, our ability to create something real out of nothing, that creativity also works in the negative, right? That we also have the ability to create a terrible life for ourselves. That we can creatively turn something that can be good into something terrible. That if we have this mood of doom and gloom, that we are still using that creative energy to do something negative, to make our experience on this planet terrible. It's still the same life source. You know, there was an Instagram, like this lady who, I don't know, she's like a Christian and she stays dropping bars and like, really just attacking Christians online. Not like actively, but like she'll just say these things and she's just like, you say you're a Christian, but you haven't opened your Bible in weeks, like type stuff. And she just stays dropping bars and it's really interesting. But anyway, the point is, there was one thing where she said that fear and faith both require believing in the unseen. You can choose which one you want to believe in. And I think that that was absolutely profound. Because even in our creative life source, it is always there. It is always bubbling, always, always being tapped into, knowingly or unknowingly, right? That we are, it is just always there. And it is our choice to choose whether we are going to create and imagine and manifest something negative or something positive for ourselves. Yes, bad things happen. And your creativity is not going to shield you from the things that are outside of your control. But your creativity can definitely be a resource even in those moments where you can choose what you're going to make of this. You've just been handed a fucking dud. You've been handed a terrible hand. What are you going to do with this? How are you going to turn this into a ray of sunshine? You've been handed a random ass ball of wool that's low-key kind of tangled. It's not even the color that you like. The texture's kind of scratchy. Are you going to sit and complain about it? Are you going to imagine a terrible world and then center your whole world around the fact that you've been given this terrible fabric and then say all this terrible wool and then say that the fact that you've been given this wool affirms this negative thought and this negative thought and this negative thought and? Or will you say, okay, let me make a scratch mat out of it so I can polish, really scrub my feet in the shower. So my feet will be soft and supple forever. And people will eventually compliment me on how soft and luscious and exfoliated my feet look. And I won't be walking around with them Jamaican foot bottom type energy. Do you feel me? Then that's not going to be my story because, yeah, I got this terrible ball of wool and it's definitely not what I was expecting. But I have the creativity and the wholeness of my being to turn this into something amazing, to not let this deter me from where I want to go in life. Because you don't have to turn every single lemon into lemonade or lemon juice or whatever the fuck the saying is, right? You don't have to turn every lemon into lemonade, but you can decide whether you're going to let the lemon derail you. Or if you're going to be like, okay, cool. I mean, I got a lemon. I'll put that aside. And if I ever need a lemon, I got one. And if I don't, then cool. It'll be there. And maybe I'll slice it up and just leave it in the sun, to dry it. And it'll be decoration somewhere. Or whenever I make my next gin and tonic, it'll be there to make my glass a little pretty. Or whatever, I'm going to let my friends know that, hey, bitch, they be handing out lemons over there. Don't go there, whatever. but to sort of understand that you have complete control, power in your wholeness. Because if you continue to exist in these little bits and pieces, right, this little contraption of a self that you've created is predicated on the assumption that you're unworthy, right? You've created this facsimile of a human being because you were told that you were unworthy. So in order for this creativity, right, this wellspring of creativity to really work for you, you need to show up whole, and you need to understand that all of you is worthy all the time. You can't start a match already 2-0, right? So you can't start, trying to tap into your creativity operating on the assumption that you're unworthy, right? Operating with missing parts. Your creativity is uniqueness to you, but it's uniqueness to your wholeness. It is unique to the whole you. And every part of you is worthy. And that's the one thing that I found absolutely beautiful about the book, The Creative Way, The Artist Way, or whatever the way, was the fact that there is creative energy sprinkled into every single facet of our lives. And therefore, every part of us is worthy. There isn't this thing of, because I'm not creating art that is just consumed, that other people will validate and consume and affirm that it is art, right? That is the only thing that validates my creativity, right? That I'm only creative if someone says, wow, amazing. No. That I'm creative even when nobody's looking. I am creative and I am special and I'm amazing, even if it's just for myself, even if it's just to myself, even if nobody's looking. I am still all of those wonderful and amazing things, because you might not recognize it as creativity, but I use my creative energy to create that spreadsheet. You might not recognize it as creativity, but I use my creative energy when I code and create websites. You might not see it as, but I am pouring my creativity into this. It is bringing me joy. It is fun. It is exciting. It is energizing. I absolutely love being creative. And I don't think anybody hates being creative, right? So if you can recognize that you are already this amazing wellspring of life, that you've been creating this whole time, that you've been on this journey this whole time, all you need to do is now tap into it more, be more intentional about it, and allow it to spread more into your life as a whole with more intention and with more joy and excitement. And that you are allowed to feel happy about your life. I was talking to a friend of mine a while ago about the fact that, I think specifically as Black people, I'm not sure how white people be doing things, right? Because, as far as I'm concerned, all they do is colonize, but, that's neither here nor there. And for the white people listening, I'm just joking, right? I know, I understand, it's fine. Everybody's nuanced, not everybody's like this. Yeah. Anyway, the point is, right, I don't know how other cultures do things, but I notice specifically amongst Black people that we have this culture of complaining about things, that's the only way that we really talk about things, even though secretly in our hearts we're happy about it, that we are, we don't actually have an issue with the situation at all, but there's a fear of showing up, of appearing to be too happy about things, right? Because then people will be jealous. People will think that you think you're better, because how dare you be happy when I'm unhappy, right? So, celebrations and happy moments are only really sort of, that's the only time, right? A wedding, a big thing, you have to make a big bash out of it. It needs to be something worth celebrating. You can't just be happy in general, right? So people, when they're talking about their kids, you love your child, they're the light of your life. they're amazing, but then you go around your friends and you're just like, yeah, he's not doing well at school, he needs help, shame, wazama, hey, my child. You'll even talk about your relationships that way, right? Just like, oh yeah, he takes good care of me, like I love him and everything, but he doesn't, and there always just has to be that but, right? And I think that that's just how we see ourselves as well, that we don't allow ourselves to be happy and to really fully enjoy things, right? Out of fear of losing them. But the nice thing about being creative is, yes, part of the creative process is letting go. You let go of the thing, right? You did the thing. You were able to express yourself. You were able to feel whatever you needed to feel. You were able to process whatever you needed to feel. But then you let go of it. As a creative person, I have found myself falling into the trap of just hoarding every single thing that I've made because it's a once in a lifetime thing, and like I'll never know if I could ever do it again, and da 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 da, and so many people liked it, and and even if I can recreate it, I find myself like in a rut now recreating the same thing because so many people liked it, and I'm just chasing that external validation, as opposed to understanding that part of creativity, as much as it is, amazing for other people and external, consumption, that creative energy is there to also help you process your own life. And you're not meant to hold on to everything. That you just have to work through the thing, and creativity allows you to work through it. But you work through the thing, you release it, and you let go. You let go. And you move on. You don't have to see it again. You don't have to treat every little thing as if it's precious, because you know that your ability is limitless, that you as a person, you are limitless, that no one can crush you, no one can break you, that you are whole. You don't need an external person, you don't need external validation, you don't need anyone or anything to make you whole, that you exist that way as you are now. As you listen to this right now, you are whole. You have everything you need to get to where you need to go. And that you can let go of some things and you will survive. That even if you lose everything, as long as you don't lose yourself, you are still whole. And you know what? You may get lost and lose yourself a little on the way, but that creative wellspring will never leave you, and it will allow you to chart a way back. So don't give up on yourself. Be creative. Think about your life as your whole entire life as a creative endeavor, as an artistic project. What will the final masterpiece of your life be?